All right, let's get into the story of one of the most famous hot sauces in the world. And you might be surprised to learn that it didn't start in a kitchen. It actually started with a total crisis.
The iconic little bottle of red pepper sauce that you see on tables pretty much everywhere? Well, we have Edmund McKillen Henny to thank for it. He was a banker in Louisiana who, right after the American Civil War, lost everything. He was completely bankrupt.
So, in this explainer, we're going to follow that journey, from financial disaster to a culinary legend. We'll look at the founder's wild bet, the very special pepper that is the heart and soul of the flavor, the unbelievably patient 3-year process, and, how it all comes together in that bottle.
So, seriously, how does a guy with no money and no real cooking background even start to create a sauce that takes over the world? Well, it really all comes down to using what you've got.
I mean, his back was completely against the wall in 1868. McKillen looked around and turned to the one thing he had left, this special kind of incredibly hot red pepper that was just growing on his family's land on Avery Island, Louisiana. It was a simple, fiery bet on a local plant. A bet that, as we know, paid off big time. Everything about Tabasco, and I mean everything, hinges on this one crucial ingredient. And their obsession with getting it right starts way before it ever gets near a barrel.
The journey from just a flower to the final pepper is a slow one. It takes about 72 days for the plant to produce that perfectly ripe, deep red pepper that meets their incredibly strict standards.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. How do they know it's perfect? Well, the harvesters use this small, color-matched red stick called le petit bâton rouge, which is French for the little red stick. They literally hold it up to every single pepper, and only the ones that match that exact shade of red get picked, all by hand.
And let's be clear, these peppers are no joke. The raw mash, before it's aged or anything, is about 50 times hotter than a typical pepper you might have at home, like a jalapeno. We are talking about some seriously concentrated fire.
Just how intense is it really? Well, when one guy was asked to taste just a tiny bit of the raw mash for a demonstration, his immediate, unfiltered reaction was just, "I'm dead." I think that gives you a pretty good idea of the kind of heat they're working with here.
Okay, so how do you take that crazy intense mash and turn it into the balanced sauce we all know? Well, this next part of the process is all about one thing: patience. A lot of patience. The mash gets packed into these big 190-liter white oak barrels. Then they pour a thick layer of salt right on top. And get this, it's not just any salt. It comes directly from Avery Island, which just so happens to sit on top of a giant natural salt dome. And this part is just brilliant. It's like a little bit of natural genius at work. As that mash starts to ferment, it releases juices. Those juices bubble up, they mix with that top layer of salt, and then they dry, forming this hard, completely airtight cap. It's a natural seal that protects the mash from the outside air so it can age perfectly. And now for what is, without a doubt, the most crucial part of this whole thing. Once those barrels are sealed, that mash is left to age for 3 full years. Not a few months, 3 years. And just to give you an idea of the scale of this commitment, at any single moment, they have up to 7,000 of these barrels just sitting in the aging warehouse. Over those 3 years, that raw, intense heat from the pepper starts to mellow out, and that complex, tangy, signature flavor we all recognize begins to develop. All right, after 3 years of waiting, patiently waiting, that aged mash is finally ready for the very last step in its journey. Time to go from a fiery pulp to the finished sauce. So you might be asking, how much does that 3-year wait really matter? Well, just look at the numbers. The aging and the final blending process completely tame that heat. It goes from a Scoville rating that can be as high as 50,000 in the raw mash all the way down to a much more balanced 5,000 in the final sauce. So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway from this incredible story of craftsmanship? A story that, remember, started with a total financial disaster. It's really this powerful combination, isn't it? You've got nature giving them the perfect pepper and the local salt, you've got tradition with the oak barrels, and then you have this just unwavering commitment to a slow, careful process that has pretty much stayed the same since 1868. And that's really the heart of it, I think. In our world today that wants everything instantly, the story of Tabasco is this powerful reminder. It shows us that sometimes the most valuable, the most irreplaceable ingredient of all is just time.